Good Friday afternoon, and welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero with you for the next 3 hours here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, as well as online at 580WIBW.com and on YouTube on Sports on 580 WIBW for the channel. And if you're watching the YouTube stream to open up the show, you'll be able to tell that I'm using the same camera that Fulton was using during Mic'd Up because my head was cut off by the camera when I first walked in. Was cutting off the forehead and up. Fulton and I just a little different in height. Just a good, 6 inches, 7 inches maybe.
You know, we were a little rough on Fulton on Crosstalk yesterday.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave the any jokes or references to Fulton's height alone, particularly because I am taller than him, but not by a whole lot.
No insult here. Just
no.
I hadn't looked at the camera. I was getting some stuff done before we turned the show live, and I looked and thought, oh, my face is right in front of the lens, but my hair all cut off. So I got that all squared away. Again, YouTube, online, and on your radio on 580 WIBW. Here for the next 3 hours. Plenty to get to on the show today. We'll lead things off with a little Kansas City Chiefs coming up here in this 3 o'clock hour. What's next? And not just in terms of, well, how does the offseason look, but what are the expectations going forward for this Chiefs team? They've won 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. They've been to 3 in that 4-year span. They've got the MVP quarterback. They've got a surefire Hall of Famer coach and tight end along with their quarterback. What is next for this franchise? What expectations are next for this team? We'll get to that here in just a few moments. We'll play some Change My Mind this hour, and Matt Derrick, our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs insider, is going to swing by for our weekly conversation. Get Matt's thoughts on what it was like being at the Super Bowl down in Glendale, Arizona. Final thoughts on Super Bowl week, the parade, and all that with Matt Derrick coming up here in just a few moments. Also, today on the show, we'll preview this weekend in college hoops. KU versus Baylor, game of the year kind of stuff at Allen Fieldhouse. And by the way, if you're like me and you are very intrigued by the bracketology, you're very intrigued by where is KU, where is K-State, where is someone else going to end up in terms of their location the first and second weekends of the tournament, KU got a big couple of favors this week. Alabama got upset and lost, and Purdue got upset and lost.
To an unranked team.
Yeah, that Purdue has hit the skids a little bit.
They've lost 3 of 4.
Yeah, I was going to say is the train derailing because that's Purdue's whole thing, but maybe that's not really appropriate right now.
It absolutely is not.
Yeah, things not going well for Purdue. Let's just leave it at that. They've played like, the way they've played looks like how West Lafayette looks to the city. Not all that pretty. So we'll talk some KU versus Baylor. Well, have you ever been to West Lafayette?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't disagreeing with you.
Not great. Also,
I didn't raise any objections.
K-State takes on Iowa State. We're going to ask one of the classic, or I'm going to ask anyway. I'm not going to put this on you. I'm going to ask a classic sports talk radio question.
Oh, boy.
Is this a must-win game for K-State? Classic question. We'll get to that because I am kind of in the camp that at least for morale purposes, it might be. So we'll talk about K-State, Iowa State coming up later on in the show as well. What is coming up in the sports calendar this weekend without football? We'll break all that down and a lot more to get to from the general college basketball world as well. We've got our headlines. We've got our What Is Wrong With You weekly championship all coming up here on 580 Sports Talk. We will probably be getting out just before 6 o'clock today. We've got our 580 Preps High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader coming up from the Dungeon at Topeka High. 5:45 is scheduled pregame, 6 o'clock game 1 tip scheduled between Topeka High and Hayden tonight. That should be a great game on the girls' side. Boys' game should be a lot of fun as well. Myself and the coach, Larry Latimer, will be on the call for that one. So we'll likely be out of here just before 6 o'clock coming up today. And, of course, you are welcome to be a part of the show, as always, on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. And the comment section is open on YouTube as well. And, again, that channel is Sports on 580 WIBW. A couple thoughts in on YouTube already to open up the show. Vance pushing back on your comment about being a little rough on Fulton by just saying a little rough. Maybe a little strong.
Hey, he was back in his sea shanty era this morning, though.
Deep in the bag, pulling out the Jolly Rogers. He tweeted at us this morning and said, here's what I was listening to on my way in. Hey, I respect it. Nothing but respectful. Also from Mark, which is Michael Jordan a happy birthday.
It is. Michael
60
Jordan
years.
is 60.
Yeah. Doesn't look a day over like 52. He looks a little old, but not like old.
He still thinks he could give every active player in the NBA a bucket right now, right this second. Take off the enormous jeans and put on his old Carolina Games shorts and give anybody buckets. I'm not saying he could. I'm saying he thinks he could.
All right. Right now, 60-year-old Michael Jordan, if you put him on the most average team in the league, you put him on the Pelicans. They are 30-29 this year.
Mm-hmm.
You give him one game. How many points is he scoring?
I think he could give you. I don't think he'd give you a lot of minutes, but he could probably give you double figures.
Could he get to 10 points?
He could get to double figures.
Playing for the Pels. Who are the Pelicans playing tonight? Do they play tonight?
No, it's All-Star
weekend.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's
All-Star
off.
weekend.
Yeah.
So their next game is against the Raptors. He putting up 20. He getting 20 and 6.
He would take Fred VanVleet into the post.
Absolutely would.
Hit those turnaround jumpers. I bet he still got the turnaround.
Oh,
the turnaround fade, 100%. I guarantee you that's still cash.
Yeah. No one shoots mid-ranges anymore. He'd eat there. No one's gardening. Eat in the mid-range.
I appreciate that somebody on the Big O Tires text line, which again is 785-272-9429, appreciated my reference to Michael Jordan's trash jeans. Jordan was always out there with like the size 5XL jeans.
Nobody truly has it all. Everybody's got something that is a demerit against them, is an issue they deal with. Tom Brady has everything you could ever want in the football world, looks, money, success, all that. Some family problems. Michael Jordan, greatest basketball player of all time, all the adulation, literally a billionaire, all this. The man cannot find a pair of pants that fit. He is incapable of finding a well-fitted pair of pants.
He rolls up to the tailor like, hey, remember MC Hammer's music videos? I want those pants in denim. Parachute jeans. It's the only way I can describe Michael Jordan's jeans. Remember the time he went denim on denim? I think he threw out the first pitch at a White Sox playoff game in all denim.
I got to find this picture now.
He looked like the chairman, president, and CEO of Levi Strauss.
Oh, man, that's funny. Yeah, here it is. Man, this was full Canadian tuxedo. This is an incredible picture. We're going to put this up on the YouTube in just a moment.
Do it.
This is remarkable. Great face as he's throwing the pitch, too. Looks like the best day of his life. All right, hold on. I got to pull up another one.
Yeah, that's what he got. That's what he got the baseball bug, because it wasn't long after that he decided, I'm going to do this for a living.
I'm gonna hop in. This is going to be my career. Yeah, so we're going to put this up on the YouTube so you can see Michael Jordan wearing denim on denim, throwing out a first pitch at a baseball game.
This was at least, I believe, denim that fit.
It's okay. It's okay. All right, so if you're watching on YouTube, it is up right now. And again, we can do a perfectly fine description for you over the airwaves as well. He's wearing pants that are maybe like a half a size too small. He's got a buttoned up denim shirt.
I think the top button is buttoned.
Yeah, top button is buttoned. I'm saying, like, if he had worn a bolo tie with this, it would have really perfected the outfit.
Man, he's having a blast too up there. He's having the time of his life.
Time of his life out there.
No wonder he retired from basketball after the ensuing season. He got the baseball bug.
That is absolutely true.
He went to go spend a summer in Birmingham, Alabama, and hit 202.
Oh my God, what an all-time picture. So yes, happy birthday to Michael Jordan. I am even wearing Jordans today.
Hey, look at that.
Yep,
you gonna get them on camera? Yeah, kinda.
Jordan ones. Are they kind of?
Are those the ones?
These are the ones. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I don't remember what exactly these are called.
Specific
colorway,
kind of colorway there.
Yeah. I own 3 pairs of Jordans. 3 pairs of Jordans. They're all ones though. I haven't ventured into anything more adventurous than that. Also, I don't have the money to do that.
I own 1 pair of shoes. This is a black pair of New Balances.
Those are the only shoes you own?
Well, like I got dress shoes.
Really?
Yeah.
You know,
I own 1 pair of shoes. I wear them until they about fall off, and then I buy another pair of shoes, and I repeat every 2 years. I've never been a big shoe guy.
As Vance points out, Michael Jordan could be a very big weekend for him. He's got a couple of drivers at the Daytona 500 as well.
Is that right?
Yeah, Daytona weekend.
It is.
Once upon a time, I got so geeked up for Daytona weekend. I had about a 2-year stretch where I was really into NASCAR. I am no longer really into NASCAR. But at one point in time, Super Bowl into Daytona, like best time of the year. But yeah, I used to be a one pair of shoes guy. I wore my Nike running shoes every single day. And then my wife was like, you can have multiple pairs of shoes. Like, it's okay. You can wear different things. And now I actually have a lot of shoes. I got 3 pairs of Jordans. I got some Sperry's. I got running shoes. I got some boots.
Yeah, I got some like winter boots, a couple pairs of dress shoes, and my trusty black New Balances.
I actually don't own winter boots. I
do.
Cowboy
I have
boots.
a very nice pair of boots.
Yeah, I probably should get some considering, it actually does snow here. Anyway, that has been 580 Sports Fashion Talk. Let's get to the Kansas City Chiefs for today. I was thinking about this over the course of the week, and right now we are still in the let's all talk about how great the Chiefs are, et cetera, et cetera. Let's lie and say we predict them to win the Super Bowl from the very beginning because we know for a fact that's not exactly true, but we can leave that debate for the internet. What's next? Like, what is the next goal? Where do the expectations go? How do the expectations change for the Chiefs going forward? Because at first it's, well, you just got to win the Super Bowl. That is the ultimate goal, win the Super Bowl. Let's see if we can validate those first 2 seasons for Patrick Mahomes, where he was the best quarterback in the NFL. Andy Reid trying to validate his entire career as if it needed it. Get the ring. Okay, that's number 1. Then it's the chase to get another one to prove that wasn't a fluke. You are the real deal. You've got that kind of all-time great DNA in you. That has been accomplished. Patrick Mahomes is 27 years old. Andy Reid, despite the banter during Super Bowl Sunday that he was apparently mulling retirement, at least to a degree, I still don't know where that came from. But he's going to be around for 5-10 years more, 7 to 10 years, somewhere in there. I would think. He's only in his mid-60s. I would think he's got plenty more time in him to coach.
I would think coaching Patrick Mahomes would keep you feeling young.
Absolutely. And Travis Kelce, all these dudes, all these fun personalities the Chiefs have. I'm sure Andy Reid doesn't feel a day over 30 at this point. So you've got that. Your core itself is going to be together at least for a while. You drafted essentially your next core with Karlaftis on the edge, McDuffie in the backfield, Sky Moore, hopefully a long-time option at receiver. I mean, you drafted your next core this year. Jalen Watson, too, because he was a starter all year, most of the year. Where do we go from here? Is it just, well, now you have to win every year or else it's a disappointment? Is it, and I would love to say it doesn't really matter, and yeah, every year is kind of Super Bowl or bust, but in reality, you can't just say, well, who cares? They won 2 titles. Like, that's already enough for an entire career. We know that's not how the sports news cycle and the sports fan cycle works. So what is the next step for this team in terms of what we expect from them and what nationally is expected of them?
The cool thing is that it feels possible that they can just do this forever because of the way they just did it, right? When you beat the game on hard mode, and that's what the Chiefs did this season, playing a bunch of rookies, assembling a wide receiver core essentially on the fly in the offseason, even during the season with the acquisition of Kadarius Toney, and winning while paying the quarterback 17% of the salary cap. I think it was no other team had done it while paying their quarterback more than 12% of the cap. And the Chiefs had Mahomes taking up 17% of their cap, and they still won. When you beat the game on hard mode, then you feel like you can keep beating it on hard mode. Like if you beat, what do you call it? Mario Kart on hard, you feel like you can go back and you can beat it on hard again. The challenge is different now. So that's what it feels like if the Chiefs continue to find starting caliber players on day 3 in the draft. If the Chiefs continue to be able to attract veterans who are looking for maybe a prove-it contract, maybe they're ring chasing. Chiefs had a lot of success with that this season, with Carlos Dunlap being a valuable part of their rotation as a 33-year-old and Juju Smith-Schuster taking the 1-year prove-it deal and leading all Chiefs wide receivers in receptions and yards. I say wide receivers there, obviously, intentionally, because I'm not including Travis Kelce as a tight end. If they continue to have success with those things and put all of that around Patrick Mahomes, the floor for a Patrick Mahomes season 5 years in has been the AFC Championship game. There's no reason they can't keep doing this. And I think that they sense that. And I think that this group, this core group, you gain an appreciation for how hard it is to do it, not after doing it, but after trying to do it again and feeling like, hey, there's no reason we can't just keep winning. Like they won that first one with Mahomes. Everything in the world felt possible. He wasn't on the mega deal yet. You feel like this is just keep happening. And then they get to the Super Bowl and they get poleaxed by the Buccaneers. And then they don't get back to the Super Bowl. They lose in overtime at home in an AFC championship game. And you learn, okay, we are mortal. And it is hard, but you learn how to overcome the hardest obstacles on your way to getting back to the mountaintop. And now it's about having the hunger to stay there, having the desire to stay there, having the longevity to stay there. And I think that flows from Patrick Mahomes. I think he has that kind of drive. I don't think it gets talked about in the same way that we talk about his physical gifts, because those are so obvious. The big arm and the elusiveness and the creativity and all of those things. But Patrick Mahomes appears to have that rare level of desire to be great that all of the legends of sports have. And if that's what drives Mahomes, it will drive everyone else around him and elevate everyone else around him. And though it is hard to predict more Super Bowls, and though it would be very easy, I think, in some scenarios to say, hey, you know what? We validated this era, call it a dynasty. We're a team for all time, this, that, and the third. And to be satisfied, because very many times we've seen success make teams happy, satisfied. You get high on your own supply, so to speak. I just don't see this happening with this Chiefs team, particularly considering how hard it felt and how hard it was for them to get back to the top of the mountain after they'd won that first one. I think that renewed appreciation for how hard it is and Mahomes's legendary level of drive and determination to reshape himself to become the complete quarterback. I think that's the kind of stuff that's contagious and can lead to more of these championship runs down the road.
I think the best thing for the Chiefs in terms of being able to keep a lot of these pieces together and remain in their most competitive stage for as long as possible is the fact that they've staggered out their star contracts really well. Now, some of that is luck. It's when you draft guys, when you sign guys, and things unfold for one reason or another. If you look at the next several years, including this season, next several years worth of free agent classes, you get to about 2025 before you really run into, okay, we're going to probably have to make some decisions here. Like if you look at the Chiefs free agents for this year, your biggest decisions by far are on Juju and Orlando Brown. Juju's making nothing this year. He's getting not even $4 million this year. He's a dirt cheap contract. Orlando Brown, obviously that's going to cost you a lot. Cap is going up by $20 million. But that's going to cost you something. I think he's coming back for what it's worth. I think Orlando Brown is going to end up back in Kansas City.
I don't think you traded first-round picks for guys you only keep them around for 2 years.
I agree with that. And I also think Juju is coming back. Or at the very least, I think the Chiefs are going to do whatever they can to bring him back. You were on this early in the year. I think you really hit it really in training camp about how well his versatility as a receiver fits this offense, that he's not a pure slot guy. He's not necessarily a true X number one, not a downfield threat, but he's just kind of good at everything. And that fits what this team needs really well because they do run a bunch of diverse routes. They have a bunch of diverse concepts that they like to run. That seems like a very natural fit there. So his cost is going to go way up. I think both those two guys are going to stick around, though. After that, your next toughest free agent decision this year is Juan Thornhill. And then Jerick McKinnon, like that's for a championship team, that's not bad at all. That's in fact a really favorable spot to be in.
And what always tends to happen with championship teams is your complimentary guys get overpaid.
Yes.
In free agency, yes. Teams will look at them and want to bring their talents into their locker room, their championship experience into their locker room, and will overpay guys who might be like the nickel corner or the third wide receiver and think, well, in our locker room, he could produce like a number two or he could produce like a starting cornerback. One of the examples I always think of was when the Seahawks won their first Super Bowl and the Giants gave a whole bunch of money to Walter Thurmond. who was the like fourth defensive back on the Seahawks roster.
Yeah.
Walter Thurmond did not light the league on fire playing for the New York Giants.
No.
You may know. So, like, I feel like that will happen to an extent, but you're right. There are so few of those guys who are actually going to hit the market for the Chiefs. Like, if they lose a Derek Nottie or a Colin Saunders or a Nick Allegretti or somebody like that in free agency, like, there might be some teams that look at those guys and say, hey, they could play more snaps in our scheme. Yep. We're going to give them more money, and that might be more appealing. Look, football players should be thinking about money as a primary motivator.
Yes.
You only get but so long to make as much of it as you can doing this.
Absolutely.
So that is something that the Chiefs could run into, but I think you're right. They won't run into that level of attrition that many Super Bowl champion teams do because they just don't have a whole lot of guys like that who are hitting the open market.
Yeah, I mean, Carlos Dunlap, that was a real nice addition this year. You've been able to add a guy like that 2 years in a row. Like, you don't need to break the bank to make sure you keep. Hell, you might get to training camp and he's still out there willing to come back and you bring him back for another year at the same deal. Like, you don't have these massive contracts. Now, there are going to be some curious ones here. Chris Jones, his contract comes up next year. Do you extend him now? I assume he is going to be extended by the Chiefs. Frank Clark, do you cut him this year? Do you bring back Frank Clark? He already restructured the deal. It's not a horrible cap hit, especially with it going up. Do you let him play out the string?
He loves playing for Andy Reid.
Andy Reid.
If you can restructure it so it's a little less onerous, a cap number, that might be worth considering, honestly.
It's so, like, if you only saw and even in the regular season, I thought Frank was fine this year. And he had some moments where he looked pretty good. You'd think, I mean, yeah, you can let that guy go. But then in the playoffs, he's the best player in football. He's the best defensive player in football in the postseason. And you think, well, shoot, the last piece of data we have is him looking good, looking spry. Maybe that's worth keeping.
It will be an interesting conversation the Chiefs have with Clark. Like, look, you had 4 sacks this year, and you're in your 30s. And there's but so much money you can go make on the open market. But we value you, and we value what you bring. And if you let us restructure your deal, we want to have you back for one more year, and you can maybe try and win a 3rd championship ring. Like, that might be an appealing sales pitch to Frank Clark.
It certainly might be. But I think because of that, and to circle back to my argument for the question at hand, I think the expectation is going to be for the near future, at least, because 2025, that's when Trey Smith comes up, Creed Humphrey, Nick Bolton, all those guys that they drafted a couple years ago, who are all really good players. That's when their contracts start to come up, and that's when you're going to have to make some difficult decisions, although obviously you'd like to keep those 3 guys I just listed. But for now, I mean, the expectation is this should be the favorite to win the Super Bowl next year. And I mean that not as it's Super Bowl or bust, every season's a waste if you don't win it, but someone will make the argument for the Chargers because they always do. Someone will make the argument for the Bengals. Someone will make the argument for the Bills. All of those teams, I think, are going to be good. The latter 2, especially, I think, will be Super Bowl contenders. No one should go above the Chiefs because almost this entire roster and certainly almost all the contributors are going to be back next year. So that should be a positive for the Chiefs that, hey, we've got everyone back. We should be Super Bowl favorites. And if they're not, just turn off your TV. That's essentially what it comes down to. If you are listening to someone who says, no, they're not favorites, do not pay attention to that. We've got more Chiefs to get to later on this hour. We've got some Change My Mind coming up next. Matt Derrick will join us later on here in the 3 o'clock hour. It's all coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Quick round of Change My Mind before we get to Matt Derrick, our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk. Change my mind, Dan. This offseason, the Chiefs should cut or trade Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I'm afraid I cannot change your mind on that one. I think it's probably best for both parties if there is a separation there, unless, I'll give you the one unless, if they think he can play a Jerick McKinnon type role for them moving forward and might flourish in a role where he's not expected to be RB1, maybe you bring him back instead of McKinnon.
Mm-hmm.
But McKinnon is a better receiver and a better pass blocker. And I think if they're going to bring back a free agent running back, it is much more likely to be McKinnon than it is to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I think they're going to move on from Clyde. I do.
Did you know he missed the parade on Wednesday?
I did not.
He was in New York at some sort of Fashion Week event instead.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he didn't dress for the game. He was inactive for the game.
Yeah.
They'd reactivate. They promoted him back to the 53-man roster. They didn't activate him for the game. They activated Ronald Jones instead.
Who had, 8 carries all year or something like that?
Something like that. So, man, I guess maybe I understand if Clyde felt a little hurt or felt like he didn't really contribute in the way that he wanted to contribute. But I wouldn't miss a parade for anything.
No. They get drunk as hell. People are yelling your name all day. Like, why not? No, I think they should. I'd pay even a little bit more than McKinnon was making this year to bring him back. He was such an important part of this offense, such a crafty part of the offense as well. And if you can trade Edwards-Helaire, because someone would move something for him, I think. He's still young. You can get maximum value now because this offseason is when you have to decide to pick up his 5th-year option or not.
Mm-hmm.
Trade him now so that another team makes that decision and can get whatever value they want out of him. You're probably only getting a late pick anyway, but
yeah, it's a third-day pick if it's anything.
Yeah. But hey, if it's a 6th versus a 7th in the future, might as well make it now.
Yeah, especially because the Chiefs pretty good on day 3 of the
Very
NFL
good.
draft. More of those picks aren't a bad thing. We spoke it into existence here on this very program, 580 Sports Talk. It was announced last night that Travis Kelce will host NBC's famed Saturday Night Live on March 4th. So go ahead and schedule that one into your DVRs. March 4th, Travis Kelce is your host. Kelsey Ballerini, by the way, is your musical guest that night. Change my mind. Travis Kelce is going to be great on Saturday Night Live.
I don't know that he will be great. I think it will end positively, though. I'm not sure he's got the acting chops to really make the stuff flow, to really make the skits look really great, but he's funny enough. I think he can poke fun at himself enough and certainly at others enough that he's going to do, I think, a pretty good job.
See, that's why I think he's going to be great. Not because I think he's this master thespian. I don't think that at all. But he's game for anything. And that is what makes a great Saturday Night Live host. Now, look, I confess, this is not like when I was a kid and Saturday Night Live had Will Ferrell and it was all the guys that Kelce was talking about when he was on with Jimmy Fallon last night, talking about getting to do this. All the guys who were on the show, like when we were growing up, where you watched it live and it was a big deal. It was a huge part of the monoculture in the late 90s and the early 2000s. It's not that anymore. It's the kind of thing that if you hear somebody funny did something funny, then maybe you catch it on YouTube the next day. It's one of those kinds of shows now. But the best guest hosts are the ones who are willing to poke fun at themselves, who are willing to go the extra mile for a joke. And I think Travis Kelce is that kind of guy. So I think he's going to have fun with it. And I think it's going to be an enjoyable night of sketch comedy.
Does he call someone a jabroni during the show?
Somebody on, I think it was Matt Verderam, friend of the program, suggested he needed to play the Cincinnati mayor in a sketch.
That'd be pretty funny.
Or have somebody play the mayor of Cincinnati in a sketch. That could be really funny. Vance suggested that his brother make a guest appearance. I would almost bet on seeing either or both of Jason Kelce and Donna Kelce. And I would almost guarantee number 15 makes an appearance too at some point.
I was going to say, I imagine someone else is going to swing by and participate either in the cold open or at some point during the show.
Anyway, March 4th is the date. We had somebody on the Big O Tires text line ask us, but I want to clarify it is March 4th for Travis Kelce on Saturday Night Live.
Let's get to a quick break. Matt Derrick will join us next on 580 Sports Talk. Let's go to Kansas City, the city of champions, the Super Bowl champions anyway, for our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider with Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. You can find his great work covering the Chiefs over at ChiefsDigest.com. You can also find some videos from postgame over on YouTube. Just look for Chiefs Digest on YouTube. You can see some of Matt's interviews with the Chiefs players post-Super Bowl. You can find Matt on Twitter as well, at Matt Derrick. Matt, how was Arizona?
It was pretty good. Had a pretty good stay. Everything was fine until, the inevitable getting the cold coming back off, like the next day in Kansas City, and I got the sniffles and everything. But other than that, the Chiefs treated us pretty well in the desert, and that was a heck of a game to watch, wasn't it?
It was a tremendous game to watch, really from beginning to end, but especially during that second half. We were discussing this next question a lot earlier on in the week in the immediate aftermath of the game. What to you felt like either the turning point of the game, or what moment made you feel like, oh yeah, the Chiefs are going to win this one after they were down by 10?
When they took the lead for the first time, so I guess that would have, that was Tony's touchdown, and they go up 28-27. That was pretty much it. I know at that point that they were not going to lose this game. I think, if I remember chronologically, I think wasn't Tony's punt return after that.
Yes.
That scene, that was just like the clincher to me. I thought if he got into the end zone there, it was definitely over. But just getting him all the way down there, and then you get Sky Moore goes in. That was, to me, the icing on the cake. But I thought, 12 minutes left, they get the go ahead score. You just felt like that was just going to be too much of a backbreaker for the Eagles to come back from, having the high of the 10-point lead, and then you get into this, oh boy, here comes the Chiefs. And since we're in Jayhawk country, it's appropriate to, I think, make the comparison. Just like the Jayhawks in basketball, the Chiefs are always going to go on a run, and the question is, can you survive the run? Well, once the Eagles didn't survive it, I felt like that was it.
I'm a big fan of that comparison, Matt. Got to be honest with you.
I figured you would be. I thought you'd appreciate it.
Patrick Mahomes, in particular, the MVP. Is there anything you can say? I'm trying to think of the right word to describe it, but is there anything more you can say about what this guy is, what this guy has done? He's won everything. He led the NFL in touchdowns and in yards this year. They were the number one seed in the AFC. He won Super Bowl MVP. They win the Super Bowl in itself. It's remarkable that he seems to keep getting better. How would you describe that performance? Is there any sort of robust adjective to be able to describe what he was able to do in this Super Bowl?
And that's the pretty crazy thing, because, you look at the numbers and you say, oh, well, he only threw for 182 yards. And yet we are, hands down acknowledging that he was the MVP in a game in which there was a ton of offense. To me, it's bigger than any one game. Was this the best game of Patrick Mahomes' career? No. But he has the ability in just whatever moment it is. And this was, not Patrick Mahomes at 100%. He was going on whatever fumes he had left, and that was plenty. I don't know. He's a transformational figure. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The NFL is going to be different after he's done. And he's changing it right now. I don't think there's any doubt. And I think we're in the midst of it, and it's hard to see the big picture. But to me, it's a little bit like all the kids that were growing up watching Dan Marino throw the football. And then, you start to see that evolution, and you start to see, hey, once it bubbles up in high school and college with people throwing the football all around, it gets better and better. You're now going to see, over the next 20 years, there's going to be a lot of kids out there who are just trying to play football like Patrick Mahomes. And eventually all quarterbacks are going to be trying to play like that. And it's going to change the game. So, to me, I don't know. I take it, maybe I'm just, this middle-aged guy trying to think about the future once I'm gone and buried and everything. But I just keep thinking, hey, one day all quarterbacks are going to try and be like this.
Our guest is Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. He is our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider and joins us every Friday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Find Matt's work at ChiefsDigest.com and find Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, quarter century or so from now, when you're talking about this particular Kansas City Chiefs team, the 2022 Super Bowl 57 champion Chiefs, How do you think they'll be defined? What do you think will make them memorable among all of the other Super Bowl champions that they now share history with?
I mean, and I'm anticipating that this is going to continue. So I don't think that the end of the dynasty is quite there yet. But the one thing about this has been how resilient they are. That's kind of been their defining characteristic. I mean, they've won a lot of games. There's not been a lot of losses for sure, but how many games has this team, made comebacks in? I mean, they have. There's never been a game that they're out of, and that's the crazy thing to me. And I think that's probably what they will be, kind of remembered for is how many deficits they came back from. I'm thinking of like when I was a kid and, and the little readers that you could get, at the Scholastic Book Fair and everything. I remember every year I wanted to get the Super Bowl one, because they had the one that just recapped all the games. And just thinking when you're going back and, kids in the future are reading about this, they're just going to say, oh, hey, wait, they were down by 10 points with 49ers second half and won that one. And then they did it again. And they made all these comebacks in the playoffs too. I think that's just going to be one of the things they're known for is just the comebacks and the resiliency and the fact that this team was never counted out. I mean, you could never put them away.
Which player do you think altered their perception the most from training camp, week one, through the Super Bowl? Which Chiefs player do you think maybe altered their perception positively the most in this 2022 season?
Ooh, that's a really good question because I do think there's quite a few. And the most is a difficult one because I think there's a handful that certainly fit into that category. I've said it, that Andrew Wiley in that game the other night made a lot of money because he is going to get some offers this offseason from teams and some multi-year deals, I think. And there's other players too. I mean, Colin Saunderson's had a really good year. He's going to fit into that category. We'll see if, or if it works out for Orlando Brown. But I don't know. I think I would go with Nick Bolton because I think that was a guy that a lot of people had questions about entering the season, about whether or not he was ready to take on the role of being a leader of this defense and setting the defense and following up on how well he played last year. And not only did he handle all those things easily, but he bettered it quite comfortably. I mean, that was a Pro Bowl caliber season that Nick Bolton had. And it's hard to remember that this is only year 2 for this guy. I think a lot of these young players, the rookies and the second-year guys, all of them improved across the board. But and as good as L'Jarius Sneed has continued to play, I think I'd have to give it for Bolton because that guy has just absolutely solidified the fact that he is a big-time leader of that defense. He's one of the best tacklers in the league, and he's an ascending player. There's room for improvement, but he's continuing to grow.
You alluded to it. You don't believe this is over for the Chiefs, that they've got an opportunity to continue this run of winning and maybe add a Super Bowl or 2 or more down the road, given who they've got at quarterback and who they've got on the sideline. What do you think the lesson learned in 2023 that will be, or 2022, the way this team was built, the way they won the championship, that will serve the organization, the players, the coaches best as they move forward and continue to try and build championship caliber teams?
I mean, the one thing I think for sure that I hope that they learn is that you have to invest in the target, the receiver position and the skill possessions around Mahomes. You can't ask your quarterback to do it all. And we've seen that. We've seen other teams around the league that once their quarterback starts making a lot of money, all of a sudden, you got to start cutting corners and you don't make the same investments, in draft picks, and you don't make the same investments in free agency to make his life easier. I keep using Green Bay as an example. I mean, you can't just, depend on Patrick Mahomes to make the guys around him better. You have to give him some guys that make his life easier. You can't put it all on his shoulders. So, even though they're able to completely retool this wide receiver room, you certainly don't want the lesson to be, hey, we can throw any 5 guys out there and Mahomes will make it work. No, I mean, to me, you've got to continue to make sure that he's got some people around him. And the Chiefs have done that. That's why I think they will continue to do so. They're going to make sure that he's got an offensive line. They're going to make sure he's got some receivers. They're going to, the backfield is the one area where probably you can save money and be creative. But you have to continue to find ways to make his life for the better. And that's the other, the long-term concern about, this team is you've got to figure out, the successor for Travis Kelce, because that's going to tell me whether, there's going to be two windows for the Patrick Mahomes career to be. There's going to be the Travis Kelce era and the post-Travis Kelce era. And that's the one that you've got to start getting ready for.
We're talking to Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. It's our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider here on 580 Sports Talk. We chat with Matt every Friday, bottom of the 3 o'clock hour, about all things Kansas City Chiefs. Check out all of his work at ChiefsDigest.com and find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. That point about Travis Kelce in particular, Matt, because you're right. At some point, they will need to find someone who can replace him. How much longer do you think that tandem is going to be at the top of the NFL, though? Mahomes to Kelce. I mean, right now, that is the number one player-to-player connection in the league. How much longer do you think that duo has?
Longer than I think, and I certainly used to think and thought. I before this season in particular, I really put Travis Kelce in the category of, other similar tight ends and, his career trajectory and what it's to be, and that, we're at the precipice where at any point now, Travis Kelce should start to show a pretty steady decline. And he's at this point showed not even getting close to that. So, I find it hard for me to be able to say, okay, hey, in 3 years from now, Travis Kelce is going to be a shell of himself. He could be, but I think his decline, barring a major injury, he's shown us already. It's going to be a slower decline than we've seen with other players. The near future, there's at any one point in any given season in the next, year or two, he's not going to be a 1,400-year guy. That's going to start coming down at some point. But I don't think it's going to be that at age 36, he's, a 500-yard tight end, and that's just all he is. I think he's got more in it. We'll see how much longer he wants to go. As much fun as he seems to be having, and having Mahomes around, I think is going to keep him young for a while. Let's see. But, to me, the thing that you're the Chiefs that you just have to guard against is that it's the NFL. Something could happen on any given play. And you don't want to play an extended period of time or an entire season without Travis Kelce. So that's to me, at least the short-term and the long-term risk. But I have a lot more confidence than I had that Travis Kelce's probably got at least another 3 to 5 year range where he's going to be, if not the best, and certainly one of the, top 5, top 7 tight ends in the league.
One last question for you, Matt, before we let you go on this Friday afternoon. And we will obviously spend a lot of the next few weeks talking about personnel moves coming and going for the Chiefs. But one guy who I think is a fascinating free agent this year, and one who I think the Chiefs should absolutely bring back, is Juju Smith-Schuster. He was big in the Super Bowl. He gutted it out. In fact, just within the last 3 minutes, Patrick Mahomes went on Twitter talking about how Juju Smith-Schuster was gutting out some injuries to play in the Super Bowl. Do you think the Chiefs are interested in bringing him back no matter what the cost is?
Yeah, they certainly are. And what the cost is the key question. I think there's, part of it is that they will probably be helped out with Juju's injury history and even some of the injuries he had this year. There's going to be teams that for him, he's just too many red flags. The Chiefs aren't in that category, so they'll be in the market, but that might keep his value down a little bit. It might make them more affordable. Plus, this is a great situation to be. He knows there's not a better situation out there, and Juju's made some money, and there's plenty to be made here. But that at least gives you at least the hope for the Chiefs that maybe there's a bit of a sweetheart discount. But I never, bank on that, because ultimately players are going to try and get the best deal. But there's absolutely definite interest. There's no doubt that Juju has, by all accounts, enjoyed his time in Kansas City. He's fit in extremely well. Teammates like him. Patrick Mahomes obviously gets along with him well. He's been a positive force in that locker room. And the Chiefs have been happy with everything across the board, too. So I think both sides are interested in trying to make it work.
Matt Derrick covers the Kansas City Chiefs over at ChiefsDigest.com. You can also find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and he joins us every Friday for our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider here on 580 Sports Talk. As always, Matt, thank you so much for the time. Glad you had a good time down in Arizona covering Super Bowl 57, and we will talk to you soon.
It is always a pleasure, guys. Take care, everybody.
That is the great Matt Derrick joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. We got a lot of college basketball coming up next hour, plus we'll find our weekly champion and what is wrong with you. It's all coming up right here on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you on this Feel Good Friday afternoon. Appreciate you swinging by the program to take you into the weekend, to help us take you into the weekend. You can find us, of course, on your radio dial, 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. You can listen online at 580WIBW.com, and you can watch it and listen on YouTube. Sports on 580 WIBW is the YouTube channel. Make sure you are watching along, and you also, while you're watching, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's the best way to make sure you are in the know for all of our live streams, our live shows, our recap videos. I will be at Allen Fieldhouse coming up tomorrow for KU versus Baylor. Very excited. Are you going to Manhattan tomorrow?
Yes, I am.
All right, perfect. So this is a great time to make sure you're following us across all of our social media platforms. Be on Twitter. Sports on 580 is the Twitter account. That's where Dan will be live tweeting from K-State versus Iowa State. I will be live tweeting the game from KU and Baylor. And then we'll both have post-game wrap-up videos on YouTube as well. The channel being Sports on 580 WIBW. We're going to get to college basketball here in just a moment. We've got some breaking news that we very much have to get to. We'll get to KU versus Baylor. We'll get to K-State versus Iowa State coming up here in just a few minutes. Also this hour, we'll talk about what's on tap for a weekend that doesn't have any NFL football, but throw the X up. The XFL
God.
is back. Where my Battlehawks fans at? Caw is the law. Caw. They play on Sunday afternoon, I believe.
I'll take your word for it.
I believe we ride with AJ McCarron, folks.
Oh my God.
That's the bandwagon we're jumping on. Where my Anthony Becht heads at? That's the head coach. So what is coming up in this non-football sports weekend? We'll get to that later on. Plus, we've got to find our weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You. Big O Tires text line is open, 785-272-9429. Comment section in YouTube also open. Sports on 580 WIBW is the channel. All right, let's get to the breaking news. Think we knew this was coming, but Eric Bieniemy is the new offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders. It has been made official. Two different reporters from the NFL Network have just tweeted about this. Aaron Wilson, who has ties all over the league, has tweeted about it as well. Now Adam Schefter. So it is happening. Eric Bieniemy has left the Kansas City Chiefs and is now the offensive coordinator once he officially puts pen to paper for the Washington Commanders. According to Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network, these are his words. By the way, this has been confirmed by Bieniemy's agent, so this is not a gotcha kind of thing. This is happening. Pelissero says KC wanted him back, but Bieniemy got an upgraded title, a chance to build his staff, and a big commitment. I'm wondering how much he's getting paid, because that's what that indicates to me. Big commitment means they're putting a lot of money and probably a long-term contract into place for Bieniemy. A couple things to note here, and we went over yesterday the realistic side of why he has not gotten past the initial interview for head coaching jobs yet. From a football perspective, Washington's a very, very intriguing fit. One, they're rolling with Sam Howell, who at one point in time was considered maybe the best quarterback in last year's class, had a bad final year at North Carolina, slides to the fourth round, looked good in week 18, and now they're saying, all right, well, you're the guy, because Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke sure as hell aren't the guys. So if Bieniemy goes out there and they have a good, even if they have a decent offense next year, he's going to look like a true genius. The other thing that's interesting to note, Ron Rivera's seat is not exactly cool right now. They have one playoff appearance in 3 years, a game they lost but covered the spread against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They didn't get back the next year. They did not get back this year either. This was being their best team probably in that 3-year stretch.
They haven't won a playoff game since 2005.
It's been a long time, which almost makes me wonder, and I don't think Ron Rivera is thinking this, but if you're Washington and your offense looks good, or again, at least decent, and yet you don't make the playoffs, you get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, whatever, you've got a pretty easy coach in waiting situation. I'm not saying that's the exact reason this is happening, but if Bieniemy had to leave Kansas City, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, the powers that be in the NFL essentially dictated that had to happen, this isn't an awful fit.
No,
He just should be a head coach.
I still hate it for him because
Agreed.
I don't think they have enough playmakers. It's not going to look like it did in Kansas City, and it's going to give everybody an excuse to look at Bieniemy and say, well, can't do it without Mahomes, can't do it without Andy Reid. He's obviously not fit, not cut out to be a head coach if you can't spin this into gold. And the other thing that may happen, he is given the title assistant head coach. That is reportedly going to happen. That's from Tom Pelissero's reporting, which would, like you said, make him the natural fit to be moved up the ladder. Well, what if it happens while the Commanders are like 3-7? Howell's a dud. The defense regresses. They stumble out of the gate. Rivera gets fired, and then Eric Bieniemy is finally a head coach, but he's an interim coach for 6 weeks steering a ghost ship.
Well, and we've got two examples on different sides of that ledger from just this season. Steve Wilkes in Carolina. I personally don't think Steve Wilkes is like Don Shula incarnate, but he got that team fighting really hard, and at the very least, probably deserved to get further in their interview process than he did. He ends up in a good spot, DC of the Niners, but that's a tough spot to be in as an interim coach who did a pretty good job. If that team was 500, they would have been in the playoff hunt all year. Instead, they sucked with Matt Rule out of the gate, never got a chance to get their footing. I mean, if he had been the coach all year, they're probably the 7th seed in the playoffs, or at least are fighting for it. Then, another angle on this, Ejiro Evero in Denver. He declined to be their interim coach when Nathaniel Hackett was fired. And he said, look, I'm not hitching my wagon to this.
Yeah, you're not going to pin this on me.
It's like a 3-legged horse with dysentery. Like, I ain't hitching my wagon to this. No chance. You're not going to make me out to be the bad guy if our crappy team does not win these last couple of games. No way. So it's high risk, high reward, right? I mean, it's super high risk because if they're not good, or if Sam Howell does not take a step or whatever, it's the head coaching opportunity is going to be even further of an idea for Bieniemy than it is right now. But if it does work out,
this should at least address the idea that some people have held that, well, does he really want to be a head coach? Man, he wants to be a head coach so bad, he's leaving the defending Super Bowl champions for Dan Snyder's team. That's how bad this man wants to be a head coach. Because for whatever reason, it's not going to happen for him. He's not going to be able to make the move from Chiefs offensive coordinator to head coach. It's just not going to happen for him. I think that is pretty well established. By the way, by all accounts, he did great in the interview process with the Commanders. They were blown away by him in the interview process, just so everybody hears that and knows that. So I think he wants to be a head coach pretty badly if he's willing to do this, because I think Bieniemy has to understand that this could go left. Like the Commanders could go out there, have the 23rd best offense in the NFL, and then the door is slammed shut because all of the stuff they said about, you're just a product of Reid, you're just a product of Mahomes. And look, he deserves the opportunity to prove whether he is or isn't that, just like other offensive coordinators who worked under Andy Reid deserved that opportunity. Or other offensive coordinators who didn't call plays for their offensive-minded head coaches, like Zach Taylor and Kevin O'Connell. Those guys weren't calling plays under Sean McVay. Those guys deserved the opportunity, had earned the opportunity. Put in less time, less sweat equity than Bieniemy, but still had earned the opportunity through the interview process, through being a candidate to go be a head coach somewhere and sink or swim. What it is unfortunate is that Bieniemy's opportunity still does not come as a head coach. It only comes as an offensive coordinator and an assistant head coach. And I hope he kills it. I hope he does a great job. I hope he does get that opportunity to be a head coach, because it's clearly something he wants bad enough to leave a great situation and make a lateral move. I know Pelissero is trying to dress this up. Well, he gets a bigger title and he can hire his own assistants on the offensive staff. No, this is a lateral move. He's going from being the offensive coordinator to being the offensive coordinator on a worse team. So lateral move, any way you slice it, maybe even less than lateral. But he's willing to do that to prove he deserves a head coaching opportunity. Don't ever say that man doesn't want to be a head coach.
I wish him nothing but the best. The Chiefs are going to be fine. Matt
Yes.
Nagy's going to move up from quality control and QB's coach to offensive coordinator. It'll be like nothing ever changed.
Yeah, a lot of continuity there for the Chiefs. I think they were prepared to lose Bieniemy.
Yeah.
I just think they were prepared to lose him to being somebody's head coach.
We didn't bring this up yesterday, I don't believe, although I might be misremembering. Did you see what Lindsey Jones tweeted from The Ringer, formerly of The Athletic, about what Andy Reid did at an owners meeting this offseason?
Yeah, he stood up and point blank asked the owners, "Why haven't you hired my guy?"
And it still didn't happen. Like I don't know. I don't
And
understand.
it didn't get close. I mean, there were only 5 vacancies, which is a small number of head coaching vacancies relative to most off seasons. But he didn't make it to the second round of interviews with anybody, not even Indianapolis. And everybody got to the second round of interviews with the Colts. I got to the second round of interviews with Jim Irsay.
How'd it go?
Not great.
He offer you any, tasty treats?
I politely declined.
Good. That's a good thing. Well, we will get to more of this, I'm sure, coming up in headlines later today, but that is obviously huge news in coaching circles in the NFL. Do you want to get to some college basketball? Let's start with KU versus Baylor coming up tomorrow. Game of the year in the Big 12, one of the biggest games of the year in college basketball. This is going to have major implications for the Big 12 title race. This is going to have major implications for number 1 seeds or seeding in general in the NCAA tournament. I personally agree wholeheartedly with CJ Moore and what he told us yesterday during the Big 12 breakdown that KU has got to be able, the number 1 matchup in this game, the number 1 X factor in this game is going to be slowing down to the best of KU's abilities the trio of LJ Cryer, Adam Flagler, and Keontae George. That group is so good. So good. Cryer had 22 the first time they played, 17 for Adam Flagler, and George was only held to 8 points in that matchup.
Yeah, they got the production from Langston Love off the bench. It really kind of made up for what they lost from George having a bit of an off night.
And that was the third game of KU's 3-game losing streak earlier in conference play. Ever since then, KU has been really good. 5 wins in the last 6. It feels like they've started to get into a rhythm off the bench a little bit. No one who's been otherworldly, but they're contributing enough. Uday has been pretty good. Edgefor gave you some good minutes. Yesufu has really stepped into that necessary guard off the bench role. Wilson's still playing well, but they're finding a lot of contributions from guys who aren't Jalen Wilson. I agreed, again, with what CJ said, that McCullough and Harris have to be as good as they can possibly be defensively against that group. But I will offer as well, the other most important part of this game is still DeJuan Harris, and it is his offensive aggressiveness. He does not need to score 15 points in this game for KU to win. But if the opportunity arises where, Juan, we need you to take 15 shots in this game, he needs to be willing to do it. If Baylor is going to give him space to go downhill or space to do that little turnaround floater that he is so good at, he's got to be willing to take it. If he's open for 3, take the shot. We have gone over this at length before. KU is so much better when DeJuan Harris is aggressive. I know he's got a little bit of a bum ankle after he rolled it on Tuesday night, but if he can be aggressive, because if you remember, the first time these teams faced down in Waco, DeJuan had an awful game.
Yeah.
4 turnovers, barely scored. I think he had 2 points in the game. Defensively, even, he was not as sharp as he often is. He, to me, is the most important single player in this game. Jalen Wilson's got to be his normal All-American self. I think Grady Dick needs to be good offensively to be able to keep up with that trio from Baylor. But to me, it's DeJuan Harris, that he is the most important player overall in this game because he is going to have a tough matchup one-on-one defensively, and his aggressiveness is really the key that unlocks the rest of this offense.
Yeah, and it's not, like you said, he doesn't have to score in bunches. He just has to provide a threat. He just has to make you guard him. You can't just give him the freedom of the floor and he doesn't want to shoot, so you don't have to guard him and you can help off of the shooters and you can really condense space against KU in the half court when he doesn't offer that threat. That's all he's got to do. He's got to offer that threat. And as long as he does that, then the Kansas offense has the space and has the ability to move the ball and create the opportunity to get the shots that they want to get. They got the way they moved the ball and got shots they wanted to get against Oklahoma State, who's the best rim protecting team in the league, offers me some confidence that they can do the same against Baylor's defense. It won't be easy. Baylor's a different scheme, but similar, what's the word? Not tendency, similar principle of not letting you get to the middle, not letting you get to the basket. If KU can get shots against Oklahoma State, I think they can get shots against Baylor. Combine that with them being at home They should have good energy. It should great energy. That building's going to be nuclear. And
it's going to rule.
I think that can be a significant edge for them. I think the biggest thing that KU's got to avoid is foul trouble on the interior. I think they've got to maximize KJ Adams' minutes in this game, and it would be a big problem if he got 2 fouls. It's going to be a big game, and maybe there's a way, a scenario where Uday makes an impact, where Ejiofor makes an impact, but I think they got to have KJ Adams on the floor for the bulk of this game.
2 things to note about Baylor. One, we were talking about Oklahoma State and how good their defense is. They are still, according to KenPom, the number 9 adjusted defense in the country. That's 4 spots down from where they were when they going into the game against KU on Tuesday. So they're still a really freaking good defense. KU's offense was great in that game. Baylor, and this is bizarre for a Scott Drew team in recent years, 78th in the country in adjusted defense. KU should be able to get some looks in this game. The one other question, though, and I know he has not played a ton since coming back from the injury. He's only played 4 games, but he's playing 20-plus minutes a game. KU did not have to play against Jonathan Tchamwa-Tchatchoua in the first matchup. That is another wild card in this game. But that means, again, foul trouble in the paint. KJ Adams, Ernest Uday, those 2 specifically have to be on their game.
Yeah, and they have to rebound KU because that's how really they lost the meeting in Waco, is they couldn't get a defensive rebound in the final 5 minutes. So they've got to be a much better rebounding team, I think, in this second meeting. That'll be another thing to watch.
As for the other game going on along I-70 coming up tomorrow in Manhattan, earlier tip, this is a 1 o'clock tip-off for K-State. And, of course, you'll be able to hear the game here on your home for Wildcats Athletics, 580 WIBW. K-State versus Iowa State. I teased this earlier. Is this a must-win game for Kansas State?
I think if only for vibes,
yeah,
then yes. Making the tournament, no. But, restoring a good feeling around the program, getting some good vibes back, getting the smile back on Jerome Tang's face. Yeah, I think it's a must-win in that way. It also kind of feels like a must-win to stay out of the bottom 4. If you want to win a Big 12 tournament championship, you would rather not have to play on Wednesday. And as Tim Fitzgerald laid out on the Azure Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up on Wednesday, a really good team is going to play on Wednesday. If you look at the standings right now, TCU is 7th in the conference, and they're getting Mike Miles back on Saturday.
Yeah.
So they're going to be a very different looking team in their final 5 games of the Big 12 schedule. Somebody who is really good is going to have to play probably Texas Tech on that Wednesday in Kansas City and survive that game just to get to the next round.
Oh, and by the way, what has Texas Tech done in its last 2 games? Upset 2 top 15 teams.
They've got, 3 straight home wins against top 15 teams in the country. Pretty good playing lately from Mark Adams and company. So you want to win a Big 12 tournament championship, you want to stay out of that bottom 4. And this is a massive game for staying in the top 6, staying in the top half of the Big 12 conference. I think there's going to be a lot of energy in the building. I think it's going to be a great crowd. Saturday afternoon, no reason it shouldn't be. And for K-State, it doesn't feel like they have to do anything out of character. They don't have to do anything they haven't done or proven themselves capable of doing. They just have to do a couple of things better in particular. Turn the ball over less and shoot better. Because they've been really slumping from behind the 3-point arc and really slumping in the turnover department. They were a little cleaner against Oklahoma. They turned it over 14 times. Still a little high, but that's not crazy. Iowa State is going to be taking lots of chances on defense and trying to turn K-State over. Wildcats need to be patient, need to be precise, need to value the basketball. If they get enough possessions where they're getting the ball to the rim, where they're taking shots, I think they're going to be fine, because Iowa State is just a completely different team away from Hilton Coliseum. They're more turnover prone. They don't shoot it as well. Their complementary guys don't give you as much. I think this is a game that Kansas State can win, and they don't have to do anything crazy out of the ordinary to do it. But how do they come out? And how do they come out in the second half? They have not been a good second half team in this recent stretch where they've been struggling and losing games. How do they come out in the second half? Do they have enough juice for 40 minutes? Might be a day where they need to get some from the 6th man at the Octagon, which I think they're more than capable of getting. I would pick Kansas State to win this game. I must win feels a little strong, but in the context of, do you want to win a Big 12 tournament? It might be a must win.
I think you need to get Keontae Johnson going in this game. 1, because I still think he is your best overall player, but 2, take a little pressure off of Marquise Noel. He scored better in the last game. he has had a couple really inefficient shooting games in general, and that is something that he needs to be at least a little bit more efficient than he has been recently. Take a little pressure off of him, get Johnson going. I am curious what the defensive alignment for Iowa State is going to look like if they try to take something away in particular, because K-State obviously has those two guys, and then there's a steep drop off to their next most regular contributor, who would probably say is Naquan Tomlin at this point. That's the player I think K-State needs to try to not force the ball to, but at the same time, kind of try to force the ball to him. You brought the point up on Monday, or I guess it was on Wednesday's show, that 11 shots for Keontae Johnson in 39 minutes is not enough.
No.
You need to get him doing more on the offensive end. I know he's had to be a little bit more cautious because he's gotten in so much foul trouble lately, especially early in games, but you've got to get something generated with him a little bit more.
You don't want to force shots or force the ball to a player, but on the other hand, sometimes you need to do it. You don't, you do it within reason, you do it within the flow of the offense, but I do think Kansas State would benefit a few possessions when they're stuck for a basket. You can do a lot worse than let's get the ball to Keontae mid-post and let's see what he can create with his own space or the gravity of having to guard him, because maybe somebody comes and doubles down and he can kick out for an open three, or he can use his body to get into the middle of the paint, probably get fouled, or make that little tough mid-range jumper that he's capable of making. But that's really good offense. And K-State has kind of needed that. Obviously calling it a sure thing is a bit overstated, but the money play, so to speak, like the thing they can go to and we could stop a 6-0 run, or we can get a bucket after we haven't gotten one in the last 3-4 possessions. And that's their thing, is Keontae Johnson. Also, it would help if Marquise Noel found his shooting boots, because he has really, really struggled of late. And a lot of what K-State has done well offensively this year, some of it, I shouldn't say a lot of it, but some of it has been Marquise bailing them out with a long three late in the shot clock, and they haven't been able to rely on those lately either.
Do his shooting boots look like the big red boots?
No, that's more of a soccer turn of phrase than it is a basketball one. I just like the way it sounds, shooting boots.
That's a good phrase. By the way, if you don't know what I'm referencing, just Google big red boots. They are very funny. They are also $350. We've got to get to a commercial break. We'll find our weekly winner and what is wrong with you after this on 580 Sports Talk. TNT teacher wins today, that'll be a wire-to-wire win here in the third full week of the month of February. But we've got two new stories going head-to-head today to try to dethrone the TNT teacher here on What Is Wrong With You. Dan, I will go first today, and we're going to New Jersey, the Florida of the Mid-Atlantic. I'm going to trademark that one. We're going to go to Hit Zone, which is a gym in Midland Park, New Jersey. And recently, a thief had been stealing money out of cars at this New Jersey gym. Had been breaking into cars and taking out wallets and other goods and robbing people. Well, we meet AJ Tenhove, who said Thursday that in recent weeks, he'd returned to his previously locked car after working out at Hit Zone to find cash missing from the vehicle. He also realized the keys in his gym locker had been messed with. So someone got into his locker, took his keys, and then broke into his car. He wanted to solve the mystery of the missing money, so he set up a GoPro in his car. Tenhove said, quote, "I pull up the GoPro footage, and sure enough, you see the owner of the gym open my car door. He closes the door, probably takes my wallet out. 10 seconds later, he opens the door again. You see him come into the frame. He puts the wallet back, making sure it's the same way." Tenhove and his friends have all been victimized, they said. They took the video to the police, who then arrested the owner of the gym, Gregory Bonco. So the owner of the gym was breaking into gym goers' lockers, taking their keys, opening up their cars, and stealing their cash.
Did he not think that the gym goers might talk amongst themselves? Like, hey, there's a thief on the loose. We should do something about it. We should catch this guy. And the owner's going, yeah, catch this guy.
Tenhove says, "We watched this guy for 7 days straight. We were in cars across the street. We set up cameras in the car. And you can watch him on a dozen plus videos go into my car, a friend's car, other clients' cars."
They set up their own sting operation.
He goes right inside. He grabs your keys, grabs what he can, and runs back inside. Among the alleged victims was Tenhove's friend, who allegedly lost $760. Tenhove has since canceled his membership.
These guys were the FBI, fit body investigators.
If you own a gym, why are you stealing cash from people? Like, this, is this average Joe's? It's gotta
does he need the money to make rent?
Unbelievable.
Wow. He's probably a kleptomaniac. He just kept doing it and doing it and doing it.
Surely no one's watching me. Even though I do the same thing every single day. What do you have for today?
So we're going to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we meet 18-year-old Anthony Lacona, who was charged by Allen County prosecutors with a level 6 felony count of criminal recklessness using a deadly weapon and one misdemeanor count of reckless driving because his deadly weapon was a red Ford Mustang with the license plate on 3, THR number 3. According to court documents, shortly after 12:30 a.m. Sunday, an Allen County officer clocked the Mustang going 130 in a 45. That's US 33 at Cook Road in Allen County. The officer pulled over the Mustang and noted the driver had a passenger in the front seat, identified in court documents as a victim of Lacona. When the officer told the driver how much he was speeding, Lacona, seeming proud of his speed, asked to see the radar. It was noted in court documents someone called about 2 hours before to report 3 Mustangs racing on I-69. One of those cars matched the one Lacona was driving. He is currently on conditional release. So he's going 130 in a 45. Gets pulled over, and his reaction is, yo, was I really?
That's nearly 3 times the speed limit. That's absurd. If he had hit another car, that second car would have been vaporized.
Yeah, like exceedingly dangerous. Can't do it. And if you're the police, good for them. Pulling over that kid, he absolutely is getting what he deserves. But it is a little bit funny that the kid is so proud of his ability to get his Mustang up to 130. He didn't believe it. He could not believe it. He's like, oh man, let me see the gun. I'm gonna take a TikTok with me in the radar gun. He's auditioning for Fast and Furious 11,000.
There are so many of them. Yeah, what an idiot. How do you not have the awareness to realize, maybe I shouldn't brag about this in front of the cop who's about to arrest me? Just a thought. That's unbelievable. Who do you have for your winner today?
Really good text from the 785 swaying me here. The gym owner bringing new meaning to, do you even lift, bro?
Ha! Well done.
That's well done on the Big O Tires text line. I'll go with the gym thief as today's winner.
Yeah, I think so too. The other one, okay, 18 years old, clearly kind of a prick. Like, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Does that beat the TNT teacher though?
No, it doesn't. I think he's a wire-to-wire winner this week.
You could have done so many different things to get out of school that day. Instead, you just ruined everyone's day, left a bomb threat. Read the room, right? Like, of all the times in history to not do that, this might be at the top of the list.
Like, if you're out of days, they start to dock your salary when you don't come in, right? Like, if you really want a day off that bad, you're just not going to get paid for it, man.
That's unbelievable.
Just don't make bomb threats.
Yeah, good piece of advice. Don't make bomb threats.
That's the best advice I can give.
That is our wire-to-wire weekly winner here in What Is Wrong With You, the TNT teacher. I am out of here. I am headed off to the dungeon at Topeka High for our 580 Preps High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. Hayden versus Topeka High coming up at 6 o'clock tonight. Dan's got you the rest of the way, looking ahead to the non-football weekend, or at least non-NFL weekend. Up next here on 580 Sports Talk.
441 on 580 Sports Talk. It's a solo mission the rest of the day. I am Dan Lucero. Brendan Dworzinski is off to the dungeon at Topeka High. Willie Nicklin Court. Topeka High and Hayden in doubleheader action tonight. Centennial League tussle at Topeka High in the shadow of the Capitol building. And we'll have it for you starting roughly 5:45 with pregame coverage. Girls game scheduled for a 6 o'clock tip. And, of course, the boys to follow. It's our 580 Preps game of the week here tonight on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. Of course, stay tuned after that for the statewide scoreboard show from the Kansas Information Network coming up at 10 o'clock. The second to last week, penultimate week of regular season high school basketball. Of course, in smaller classes, I believe this is the last week because then you hustle right into sub-states and the extended sub-states in 3A and below. So getting close to postseason basketball, one of my absolute favorite times of the year. Topeka High and Hayden is your matchup tonight on the 580 Preps high school basketball game of the week. Coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, we're going to do our Blue Dot of Kansas headlines, and we are also going to give away a pair of tickets to see the Kansas State Wildcats and the Baylor Bears. I'm holding them in my hand. If you're watching on the YouTube stream, I'm holding them, and I'm holding them up. You can see that I have a pair of tickets to see the Kansas State Wildcats and the Baylor Bears. We're going to give those away in the 5 o'clock hour. So stay tuned for your cue to call, your chance to win 2 tickets to see Baylor and K-State. That is next Tuesday night, a 6 o'clock tip-off. And we will give those away in the 5 o'clock hour. Also have something interesting that I was looking at regarding college basketball and the parity that we have seen across the college basketball landscape this year. The record for top 15 teams playing on the road this year is as bad as it has been in a decade. We'll talk about why that might be and what that might mean coming up in the 5 o'clock hour as well. But this is the first post-NFL sports weekend of the year coming up. And I regret to inform you all that it is not a spectacular college basketball weekend either, outside of the Big 12, where every weekend is a spectacular weekend. You have the biggest game of the day Saturday, Baylor taking on Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse. There's a reason ESPN is in town for their college game day. Iowa State, Kansas State is massive as well. Those are the 2 games featuring ranked teams playing against each other, period, this weekend in college basketball. That's all you get. No other ranked teams playing each other. Just those 2 Big 12 showdowns in the Sunflower State. Also in the Big 12 this weekend, by the way, the return of Mike Miles that has been confirmed by folks close to the TCU basketball program and also seemingly by Mike Miles himself on Twitter. Mike Miles will be back for TCU as they host Oklahoma State on Saturday. That is a 1 o'clock tip, much like Iowa State and Kansas State. Iowa State and K-State are on ESPN. Oklahoma State and TCU are on the Plus. Baylor KU is on ESPN. Oklahoma Texas is also on the Plus, which is very funny when you put it that way. Extremely funny. Oklahoma and Texas. Also a 1 o'clock tip, also on ESPN Plus. 6th ranked Texas trying to send Oklahoma back below the 500 mark on the year. And Texas Tech, West Virginia is actually the first Big 12 game of the day. Texas Tech's been on fire. Can they take it on the road against a West Virginia team that has taken it on the chin their last couple of times out? Been tough to win in Morgantown all year. So that is the first game of the day, 11 a.m. for that one, 1 o'clock for 3 of the other games, 3 o'clock for Baylor and Kansas. And, of course, we mentioned it, Iowa State, Kansas State coming your way here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9, home of the Wildcats. Pre-game coverage at noon on Saturday. Twitter reaction and YouTube reaction on our social channels from yours truly. I'll be at Bramlage on Saturday afternoon. Other than that, yeah, it's kind of a grim college basketball weekend. It's not super great. But, hey, the weekend is your couch time. And now there's no NFL to tide you over. There is XFL football. I'm not going to be a hater like I generally am on the general idea of spring football. I resolve not to yuck anybody's yum when it comes to alternative football leagues. And maybe that's just the influence of working with Brendan for so long rubbing off on me. But I am not such a football person that I am sitting there the week after the Super Bowl thinking, man, I really need more football in my life. What if I had what I just saw, the culmination of the NFL season with an all-time classic Super Bowl? What if I could have that sport back in my life, but worse, with worse players and worse crowds and no vibes and no context and no stakes and no history? What if I stripped all of that good stuff from football? Like skill and pageantry and emotion and crowds. What if I took all of that out and watched made-for-TV XFL football on ESPN Plus? Yeah, not for me. Not for me. It might be for you. There's 2 games Saturday. There's 2 games Sunday. You can even bet XFL games. You can do it. You can do it with our friends at FanDuel. I have recommendations for you. I have numbers you can call, websites you can visit if you're thinking of betting on the XFL. Also, this sports weekend, college baseball opened up today. There have been college baseball highlights and clips and scores all over the timeline. Softball's been going. College softball has been going. And if I may for a moment, shout out a couple of local prep standouts who have turned into standout pitchers for their respective college teams. Casey Hamilton's out to a great start in the circle for KU softball through a shutout yesterday. And Nyjah Kennedy threw a no-hitter for Stanford a few days back. I think it was last weekend. Nyjah Kennedy, of course, the former Topeka High standout. Casey Hamilton, Washburn Rural, multi-sports star. And both of them are off to great starts this college softball season. So tip of the cap to both of them. But college baseball opens up this weekend. KU and K-State, I believe, are both in action. I am not educated enough on college baseball, Big 12 baseball, to give you a whole lot in the way of predictions or thoughts on what it's going to look like for K-State or KU on the diamond this year. Obviously, KU's got a new coach, a very new-looking roster. They brought in a lot of transfers, brought in a lot of JUCOs. We'll see if that gives Jayhawk baseball a little juice in a way that they really haven't had it in a while. K-State feels like a program headed in the right direction as well. Hopefully they can keep some of their momentum that they gained from last season too. But college baseball is back. And if you're jonesing for baseball, jonesing for college baseball, there's a lot of that on ESPN Plus. There's so much college baseball on the Plus. It's unbelievable. It's conferences you didn't know existed. It's schools you didn't know existed. Playing baseball all day, Saturday and Sunday. You could sit on the couch and just roll college baseball all weekend if you wanted to. As much as I love baseball as a whole, I've never really gotten into like deep diving in on college baseball. I don't know why that is. It's the same game. It moves a little faster. There's still some strategic elements to college baseball that you don't see as much in Major League Baseball that I can appreciate, but I've never really dove into it the way that that you might have expected. No, if you know anything about me as being a big baseball guy. But that opens up this weekend. You've got the Genesis Invitational. Should be an awesome weekend at the Genesis. The question is Tiger Woods going to be playing on the weekend? A chance that will not be the case. Tiger lipped out a par chip on 9 today, this morning, which was his 18th hole, and ended up having to tap in for bogey. That sent him to 1 over on the weekend. And as of right now, that is inside the cut line. The cut line is +1 as it currently stands, with about half the field, a little more than half the field done for the day. So as it currently stands, Tiger Woods is inside the cut line and would, in fact, play the weekend. Also inside the cut line, Gary Woodland, who shot a 269 yesterday. He's even through 9 today. I don't know what 9 he played first. Looks like he played the back 9 first. So he holds it in the road. He's going to make the cut. It's going to be a great leaderboard. Keith Mitchell right now leading the tournament, but Colin Morikawa's a shot back. Max Homa is 2 shot back. Rory McIlroy is 3 shots back. John Rahm and Scotty Scheffler and Tommy Fleetwood and Patrick Cantlay are lurking as well. It's going to be a star-studded leaderboard at the Genesis this weekend. That will be worth checking out. And if Tiger plays, Tiger will be worth checking out because, again, you're not going to get to watch Tiger Woods play a whole lot of competitive golf. Like, you're running out of chances. So you may as well enjoy the ones you get. NBA's All-Star Weekend is this weekend. The dunk contest, the three-point shootout, the Rising Stars Challenge. They're drafting the All-Star teams, I think, tonight. I think that might be tonight that they're drafting the teams live, except they're doing it backwards. They're making the captains, Giannis and LeBron, draft the reserves first because they're trying to spare somebody the embarrassment of being the last player picked. That's exactly why they're doing it, which I think is super lame. It's not feelings ball, it's basketball. They should make it so somebody has to experience the indignity that, who knows, maybe you felt growing up. Any of us could have felt that indignity as a youth, being picked last on the playground. Now it's time to make somebody who's never been picked last in their life feel that same feeling. And the NBA took that from us. Shame on them. I have no excitement in me for All-Star Weekend. I do like the All-Star Game format that basketball uses now with the Elam ending, they call it. You play to a final score in the fourth quarter. I think it has made it a little more competitive, a little bit more exciting at the end. But like there are no stars in the dunk contest, and three-point contest is kind of lost its luster because everybody can make threes now at a 40% clip. So that is going on this weekend, though, in Salt Lake City. Something else potentially if you would like to check out. And also, I would be remiss if I did not mention the Daytona 500 running on Sunday. I have a sincere question because I know we got some NASCAR fans in the audience, and I'm asking this sincerely. I'm not knocking auto racing. I'm not. But I'm asking this question from a place of sincerity. You get the NFL, right, for how many? It's an 18-week season, and it's 4 weeks of playoffs. So it's 22 Sundays, right? 22 Sundays in a row, you've got the NFL. And maybe your favorite team doesn't play all 22 Sundays, but 22 Sundays, you've got the NFL. And then the very next Sunday, after the NFL is done with the Super Bowl, it's the Daytona 500, and then NASCAR's on Sunday, like every Sunday, right? So what I'm asking my NASCAR/football fans out there is, when do you guys get a free Sunday? Do you guys ever get a Sunday? Do you ever get a Sunday where you get to check off the honey-do list, or go thrifting or do something? Because that's jam-packed Sundays for the NASCAR fan who is also an NFL fan, because the season just rolled right into the Daytona 500. By the way, make mine Denny Hamlin. Let's say Denny Hamlin. Make mine Denny Hamlin at Daytona on Sunday. He always runs really well at Daytona. So he's my pick to click at Daytona on Sunday. Enjoy your sports weekend, whatever shape or form it may take, or enjoy a Sunday with no football to go on a hike or do whatever you'd like to do. We got plenty more coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. That's coming up after your national and local news and this break. Let's get it. Final hour-ish of the day. Final hour-ish of the week here on 580 Sports Talk. What a week it's been. Super Bowl championship winning week here on the program. Thanks for hanging out with us, making us a part of your Friday. I am Dan Lucero. It's just me for now. Brendan Dworzinski standing by at the dungeon at Topeka High School for tonight's 580 Preps Game of the Week. Girls and boys basketball action between Topeka High and Hayden. We're set to throw it out their way at roughly 5:45. Could be later, could be earlier. Just hang out with us and you'll get to hear high school hoops when Brendan and the coach, Larry Latimer, are ready to rock and roll from the dungeon here on 580 WYBW and FM 104.9. In the meantime, in between time, we've got 580. We got our Blue Dot of Kansas headlines, 580 Sports Talk headlines presented by Blue Dot of Kansas. I've got some thoughts on college basketball parity, just how hard it is these days, or this season anyway, to win on the road, even as a good team. And I'll have a final word. And I'm giving away a pair of tickets to see K-State and Baylor in men's collegiate basketball next Tuesday night at Bramlage Coliseum. I've got a pair of tickets for next Tuesday's game. I'm going to give them away at some point this hour, so be listening for your cue to call. The text line is wide open. The Big O Tires text line is 785-272-9429, 785-272-9429. You can also interact with the show in the live chat on YouTube. Check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/@sportson580. That's the @ symbol after the slash, and then Sports on 580. Subscribe to the account on YouTube. Doesn't cost you a dime and allows you to see our videos, our live streams, our instant reactions, and all of our other video content right up at the top of your YouTube page. It's a pretty neat perk, and again, costs you absolutely nothing. Subscribe to the YouTube page today, youtube.com/@sportson580. Would love to hear from you here in this final hour of the show. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the Blue Dot of Kansas headlines. And they're brought to you by BlueDotOfKansas.com. Blue Dot of Kansas. You can find them at BlueDotKansas.com. The Peak Performance Safety Check allows you to check your furnace, AC, and plumbing once a year, all for one low price. Visit their website, BlueDotKansas.com, and see what they can do for you. Two Chiefs notes, one a little more significant than the other that we'll get to start our headlines. It was breaking news about an hour ago. You heard Brendan and I react to it live. The Washington Commanders are finalizing an agreement with Eric Bieniemy to become their offensive coordinator and assistant head coach. According to John Keim of ESPN, the sides have agreed in principle on a 2-year deal and are now working on the language of the contract. Bieniemy's contract was up with the Chiefs. He had signed a 1-year deal last year. Bieniemy spent the last 5 seasons as the Chiefs' offensive coordinator. During that time, the Chiefs went to 5 AFC championship games, 3 Super Bowls, and won 2. Still in all, unlike his predecessors, Matt Nagy and Doug Peterson, Bieniemy never got serious consideration to be anybody's head coach. Peterson was able to get a head coaching gig. Matt Nagy got a head coaching gig. Eric Bieniemy just couldn't shake the perception. Well, there were a lot of perceptions he couldn't seem to shake. That he was a product of Andy Reid, that he didn't call his own plays, that he couldn't do it without Patrick Mahomes, that, well, maybe he just wasn't going to be a great interview, so he couldn't really do the whole head coaching thing. Perceptions that his predecessors, once again, who were also Andy Reid's offensive coordinators and who also didn't call plays, did not have to deal with. So for Bieniemy to become a head coach, and what this move says more than anything else, more than anything about the relationship between Reid and Bieniemy, and the relationship between Bieniemy and Patrick Mahomes, and the relationship between Bieniemy and the Chiefs, and vice versa. What this says is that Eric Bieniemy wants to be a head coach. And if this is the thing that he keeps bumping his head against, unfair though it may be, and it is 100% unfair, if he is being held to a different standard than Doug Peterson was and then Matt Nagy was, and that other offensive coordinators under offensive-minded head coaches who did not call their own plays, like the two Sean McVay assistants who didn't call plays under Sean McVay and have still gotten head coaching jobs, Zach Taylor in Cincinnati and Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. For Eric Bieniemy to defeat that perception, he has to make a lateral move and go somewhere else, because this says above anything else that Eric Bieniemy wants to be a head coach, that he really, really, really wants to be a head coach. And this is him, unfortunately, having to buckle to that perception that, well, he's just a product of Reed Mahomes. He's not calling his own plays. Well, now he's going to go call his own plays. And now, instead of Patrick Mahomes, instead of Jordan, he's working with Sam Howell as potentially his starting quarterback next year. So we will see what Eric Bieniemy is made of. And if the Commanders have a good offense next year, I'll bet Eric Bieniemy's the head coach, because people will be just about out of excuses at that point not to hire him, won't they? Because by all accounts, the interview that Bieniemy had with the Commanders went great. So never mind that whole, well, he's a bad interview thing. And never mind that bit of perception there. So Eric Bieniemy wants to be a head coach. This is the thing he has to do to go be a head coach. The Chiefs will miss him, but they will be able to plug Matt Nagy in as the offensive coordinator. He was back with the team this past season, as you well know, after he flamed out as the head coach of the Bears. Nagy was back in an assistant's capacity for the Chiefs this year. Now, the Chiefs do have to go through a formal interview process to find a new offensive coordinator, and they will be held to the Rooney Rule bylaws, just like any other team would be. But it would seem to be a natural progression to promote a previous offensive coordinator and to keep continuity going for the Chiefs, because obviously continuity has led to a great deal of success for Kansas City. Now, our friend of the program, Matt Derrick, had this to say on Twitter a little bit ago. Assuming Matt Nagy does become offensive coordinator and assuming the Chiefs hire a quarterback's coach, expect pass game analyst and assistant quarterback coach David Girardi to get serious consideration for the promotion. A young up-and-comer with a great relationship with Mahomes and the rest of the quarterback room. So keep that name in mind, David Girardi, as somebody who might move up to Nagy's old position as the quarterback's coach, if indeed Nagy, as would make a lot of sense, and I think as most people expect, gets bumped up to the OC chair with the departure of Eric Bieniemy. The Commanders have not made it official, but it's been widely reported, so expect an official announcement. Many are saying that the announcement from the Commanders will come tomorrow. So Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator for Washington. We have one prediction from the Big O Tires text line. You heard it here first. EB will flop. I want to address that. I think he's earned the right. He's earned the right to fail, hasn't he? Wouldn't you say he's earned that right? That's been the biggest argument. I don't want to say that I've sat behind the microphone and said Eric Bieniemy will be the greatest head coach in NFL history. I don't even think I've said Eric Bieniemy I think will be a good head coach, because the truth is I have no idea. I have no idea. There have been guys I thought were going to be great head coaches, and it didn't work. There are guys I thought were going to be awful head coaches, and it has worked. Dan Campbell would be a great example of that. I thought that was going to be over by now. And guys like playing for Dan Campbell. He's making it work. He's hired good people around him. Dan Campbell's making it work. I was wrong about Dan Campbell. I thought it wasn't going to work for him, and it has worked. I thought Matt Nagy would be a decent head coach. That didn't work for him in Chicago. And there are 100 reasons why it works or doesn't for a head coach in any situation. If Eric Bieniemy goes to Washington as their offensive coordinator and it doesn't work out, it will likely be as much because he's working with Sam Howell and a wide receiver room that I kind of like, but isn't, superstar laden. Like Terry McLaurin's really good. Maybe that's unfair to McLaurin. Maybe he is a superstar. But you got him. You got the Dotson kid from Penn State, who's a rookie this year. And then you got a whole lot of question marks at wide receiver. There's not an elite tight end. It's not a great offensive line. The offense wasn't great last year. And expecting Eric Bieniemy to perform miracles with Sam Howell and Terry McLaurin, I think would be expecting a little bit too much. But the argument that I've tried to make with Eric Bieniemy is, given his track record and desire to be a head coach, he's earned the opportunity in the same way that Matt Nagy earned the opportunity, in the same way that Doug Peterson earned that opportunity. And people never held the things against Peterson and Nagy that they seemed to use as a cudgel against Bieniemy. So I think he's earned this chance. I have no idea. He might struggle. His past experience as an offensive coordinator at the University of Colorado, that went really poorly. Really poorly. Also, John Embry was the head coach, and that whole program was in the dumpster and kind of was until, well, I don't know what they're going to be with Deion Sanders as a head coach. I had no idea how that's going to go, but at least it's interesting. So, yeah, it could go a lot of different ways for Eric Bieniemy. It could, and if he does indeed flop, he's never going to get that chance to be a head coach. But I think he's earned that right to prove himself because he has done great work, because he has received so much credit behind the scenes from guys like Patrick Mahomes and a guy like Andy Reid, who would know, I think, from offensive coordinator talent because he keeps hiring good ones and they keep getting head coaching jobs. And Doug Peterson didn't have to go be an OC somewhere else to prove himself. And Matt Nagy didn't have to go be an OC somewhere else to prove himself. And Eric Bieniemy is the one that does. And I think that's really disappointing and disheartening. But I hope for the best for him. It might not work out. It might not. It's not as good a situation as calling plays or working alongside Andy Reid. It's not as good a situation as sending plays into Patrick Mahomes. But he's earned the shot. And I wish him the best. And I would imagine that even Chiefs fans who are skeptical about how well it will work out for him outside of Kansas City also wish him the best because he's done such a tremendous job the last 5 years on the Chiefs staff. And as a couple of folks have pointed out on the Big O Tires text line, one from the 785, I couldn't work for that owner in Washington. No, that's a fact. Man, look, man, it's an NFL paycheck. It's an NFL team, but Daniel Snyder got to be very low on the list of guys you'd want to work for, guys you'd want signing your checks who own NFL teams. He might not be very low on the list. He might be the bottom of the list. Anyway, the other Chiefs-related headline, we touched on this a little bit in the 3 o'clock hour. Travis Kelce is going to host Saturday Night Live. March 4th, this was announced last night. Saturday Night Live rolls out usually on like a 3-week rolling schedule who their upcoming hosts and musicians are going to be. And they made it official last night, and Travis Kelce made the announcement himself on Late Night with Jimmy Kimmel. I don't think it's, sorry. Late Night with Jimmy Fallon. Wrong Jimmy. I had the wrong Jimmy. It was Mahomes went on Kimmel. Kelce was on with Fallon last night and said that he was going to be hosting Saturday Night Live. March 4th, musical guest Kelsey Ballerini, who I get confused with Casey Musgraves, which only because of name recognition. I just think those names sound similar. I don't know any of their songs. I don't know any Casey Musgraves songs. I know Brendan's a big Casey Musgraves guy. I don't know any of her songs. And I don't know any Kelsey Ballerini songs. I'll learn a couple because I'll be watching March 4th. I'll be watching to see what kind of shenanigans Travis Kelce gets into on Saturday Night Live. We talked about it again in the 3 o'clock hour. It's not as essential as it used to be. The thing about Saturday Night Live is that it's not as good as it was when you were of a certain age and you were in like that demographic or that time frame where it tickled your funny bone. So if you're of a certain generation, it's not as good as when Eddie Murphy was on it, or it's not as good as when Will Ferrell was on it, or it's not as good as when like Will Forte and Jason Sudeikis were on it. And no matter how old you are, you have an age at which Saturday Night Live was funny to you, and now it's not anymore. Or it's less funny than it used to be, less essential certainly than it used to be. But I imagine even folks who, they've got Saturday night plans or just as a general rule aren't really into Saturday Night Live. I got to think there will be a lot of Chiefs fans who will have some curiosity and maybe they double back Sunday on YouTube and see what kind of sketches Travis is in. And also, I would be stunned if Patrick Mahomes doesn't make an appearance on that Saturday Night Live episode. I think he's going to be awesome. I think he's going to do a great job. I think he's going to be down for anything. I think he's going to have some great guests that join him. I think it's going to be a good time. March 4th. Mark your calendars for Travis Kelce on Saturday Night Live. Anyhow, get to some other headlines from the world of sports. These are our Blue Dot of Kansas headlines brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. Find them on the web, blue.kansas.com. Sources have told ESPN that free agent quarterback Derek Carr is going to make a visit to the New York Jets. Carr was released on Tuesday by the Raiders, had previously, before his release, made a visit to New Orleans to visit with the Saints, and now reportedly will visit with the New York Jets. I am on record as saying I believe, in a way I don't believe it about a lot of teams, I really believe the Jets are a quarterback away. I don't think they can challenge the Chiefs, and I don't think certainly that Derek Carr is the guy that's going to lift a franchise above the one that has Patrick Mahomes on it. And the reason I believe that is because I have observed the AFC West over the last 5 years, and I have observed David Carr try and mostly fail to beat Patrick Mahomes. Did I say David there? I meant Derek. You guys know what I mean. You guys know what I'm talking about. So I don't think Derek Carr is the guy that gets the Jets to the Super Bowl. Let me just say that. But is he the guy that gets the Jets to the playoffs? Is he the guy that gets the Jets maybe punching with Buffalo at the top of the AFC East? I think he could be that, because I think the rest of that Jets roster is really good. They've got the young skill player talent. They're getting better up front. They're tremendous on defense. I like Robert Saleh as a coach. I think they're going places if they get a quarterback. And I've said for a long time, I thought Aaron Rodgers made a lot of sense there. But whatever upgrade, they have to make an upgrade. They can't go into another year with Mike White. Certainly not Zach Wilson, who, honest to goodness, might be the worst quarterback I've ever seen. At least the worst drafted as high as he was that I've ever seen. And he's not worse than Nathan Peterman, but it is a conversation. And that shouldn't be a conversation. We're talking about a guy who went number 2 overall in the draft. They can't go into another year with Joe Flacco, right? They've got to upgrade. And I think Derek Carr makes a good amount of sense. I think Derek Carr could get the Jets to the playoffs. I think he could maybe even win the division if the Bills dealt with some injuries or took a big step back, had a bad offseason. But remains to be seen, and I think that is fascinating. Derek Carr heading to New York to visit with the Jets. That's going to wrap up the Blue Dot of Kansas headlines. We're going to probably get to high school basketball a little sooner than anticipated, so we're going to take our first break of the hour here, come back, a quick word about parity in college basketball and what it might mean for March. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Back on 580 Sports Talk here at 525 on a Friday. Caller number 4 right now to 785-272-9429. Caller number 4, 785-272-9429. You're going to Bramlage Coliseum Tuesday night to see the Kansas State Wildcats and the Baylor Bears. I've got 2 tickets for that game, and I want you to call right now and win those tickets. 785-272-9429. Caller number 4 wins that pair of tickets. Speaking of college basketball, obviously 2 massive games coming up in the Big 12 on Saturday, both here in the Sunflower State. Baylor taking on Kansas, Iowa State taking on Kansas State. 2 top 15 teams, or rather 1 top 15 team in this scenario. Baylor is going on the road, and top 15 teams on the road this year have been struggling. Not in the sense that they have a losing record. They don't. They have a winning record, but not by much. Top 15 teams this year after last night. So this includes Purdue's loss at unranked Maryland last night. Top 15 teams this year are 68 and 62 on the road. So that includes Purdue, number 3 in the country, lost at unranked Maryland last night. That's 3 losses and 4 for the team that's got the likely national player of the year. We've also got number 1 Alabama, who lost on the road Wednesday night to Tennessee, which means we're going to have a new number 1 next week. But that is a 52.3% winning percentage. 52.3% winning percentage for top 15 teams this year. That's just barely better than it was in 2013, where they won 51% of their games, or 51.8%, so just shy of 52%. If you remember back in 2013, the Final Four gave us a 1 seed, 4 seeds, and a 9 seed. So parity was a big deal in 2013, and that's kind of what you're seeing with regards to the winning percentage for top 15 teams away from home this year, 52.3%. Worst in a decade for top 15 teams away from home. Now, top 15 teams on the road against ranked teams are 10 and 26. When a top 15 team goes on the road, they are winning less than 30% of the games against ranked teams. That continues a 2-year trend of being below 30% in those games. The record for top 15 teams on the road against unranked teams is 58 and 36. And that is the worst winning percentage that top 15 teams have had against unranked teams since 2016. Back in 2016, there was a 10 seed that made the Final Four. Syracuse. They made the Final Four as a 10 that year. So the evidence all points to top 15 teams having an extremely difficult time playing on the road this year. There's a lot of different ways you can look at the reasons why that might be the case. Is it there are no great teams, or is it that there are more teams that are just pretty good? Like Maryland last night. Maryland's unranked, but I think they have spent some time in the top 25 this year. They're not a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. They sniped Purdue last night. We've seen Kansas State lose as a top 15 team on the road in each of their last 2 games to unranked teams, but still teams in the top 60 in the Ken Pop. I did have a theory. I did wonder at one point if maybe playing on the road in league play is harder this year or harder now than it used to be because the conferences are so far-flung. The travel demands are greater. But in reality, the Big 12 has been what it's been in its usual configuration for a while. And the Big 12 has been in its configuration for a while. So I don't think that's it. I don't think it's more arduous travel. I just think that what we're seeing are more good teams, more so than it's no great teams. The wide openness of the field is a reflection of more teams being good. And I think especially this year, where we're at right now in college sports, it means a lot to have veterans. It usually does. But in the wake of the COVID year, where everybody got a bonus year of eligibility, you have a lot more teams out there that have 4th-year guys, fifth-year guys, even some sixth-year guys. And those programs that aren't churning out the one-and-dones or churning out the NBA talent, they've been able to build their roster full of veteran guys who know how to play college basketball. And I think the middle and bottom of most leagues, most Power 5 leagues, are full of programs who might normally have some difficulties up against elite teams, elite talented teams, but right now are sitting with a bunch of veteran guys who played in those games, a bunch of 21, 22, 23-year-olds who aren't scared of a big moment. I mean, Oklahoma has a lot of young players on its roster. Oh, God, I'm going to forget his name. Porter Moser. I called him Peyton Moser. That's wrong. Porter Moser has assembled a ton of young guys that he's giving playing time to, but Grant Sherfield and Tanner Groves are old for college basketball players. And Groves' brother is old. So you've got veteran guys on this roster. Texas Tech, bottom of the Big 12. Kevin O'Banner's played in a Sweet 16. He's been around a long time. Devion Harmon's on like his third school, his second Big 12 school. They've got veterans. So that's why I think this year in college basketball, you're seeing that parity. I think you're seeing more good teams because I think you're seeing more veteran teams. And I think that's why programs that have kind of built around one-and-dones, like Duke, for instance, have struggled a bit this year. Because as great as your 18-year-olds might be, you run into a team full of 22-year-olds on the road, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. So hopefully that home court advantage holds for the home state teams, and those top 15 teams from Kansas and Kansas State can play well at home and pick up some wins on Saturday. But if it feels like there's a lot of parity in college basketball to you this year, you're not wrong and you're not alone. And that's the reason why. One final break. The final word is next here on 580 Sports Talk. Wrapping up and walking off this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero with you, Brendan Dworzinski and Larry Latimer just about ready to rock from the dungeon. High school basketball coming your way tonight. 580 Preps game of the week between Topeka High and Hayden. Final word for me for the week. What a week. Championship week. Another one in Kansas City sports. 3 of them in 8 years. 2 Super Bowl championships in 4 years. Man, don't ever take it for granted. These are the good times. You're in the middle of them. What a week to celebrate the champions. And yet, as the week ends, a reminder that it's never permanent. You know, you put that team picture on the wall at the end, everybody's celebrating with the Lombardi trophy, or, you know, that stock team photo where everybody's sitting on the riser and you've got the coaches in the middle all sitting together and the players are in numerical order sometimes or by height sometimes. You put that picture on the wall and then that's the last of that team. That's all that team exists as is a picture. It'll never be that team again. And we know now that they will have a different offensive coordinator as Eric Bieniemy appears poised to head to Washington to be the offensive coordinator with the Commanders. And there will be other departures, and there will be ones that sting more than others. Certainly, there will be popular players, standouts from the Super Bowl run that eventually do depart. But that picture on the wall is a forever's team, as Mitch Holtz has put it, a championship team. And take the weekend, if you're so inclined, to appreciate them one more time before they become, again, just a picture on the wall. And also, when Denny Hamlin wins the Daytona 500, remember that I picked that. Remember that NASCAR Dan called that. NASCAR insider Dan Lucero sticking his neck out with a Daytona 500 prediction this week. Anyway, enjoy your sports weekend, whatever it might hold for you. Be safe out there. Make good decisions. We are off on Monday. No show for us. We're taking the federal holiday. So we will be back on Tuesday with a full slate of Sports on 580 programming, mic'd up from noon to 3, 580 Sports Talk from 3 to 6. For Brendan Dworzinski, I am Dan Lucero. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you Tuesday. Until then, this has been 580 Sports Talk. 580 Preps High School Basketball is next.